"My name's Jubilee. I blow stuff up," she says, dressed in her yellow trench coat. That's how Jubilee introduced herself in the animated series. Hence, she's been a lively member of the X-Men, a team that deals with grim and pretty dead serious matters. You know, like the end of the world, sometimes the universe, stuff like that. Although Jubilation Lee came from a privileged and charming life, her story took a tragic hit when her parents were murdered. Smells like Batman. But no, Jubilee's life was way different, as she did not have a good old butler to help her with her life. After her parents' tragic death, she ended up in an orphanage, but decided to run away and seek refuge in a Hollywood shopping mall. She discovered her unique power to create dazzling and explosive energy blasts, often called fireworks, while evading mall security. Eventually caught by security, she was rescued by the X-Men. With no better options, she tags along with them through a portal and becomes the youngest member to join the force. During her time with the X-Men, she forged a strong bond with Wolverine, who, along with being her mentor, was a father figure for her. Jubilee had stints in various superhero teams, like the X-Corporation, the New Warriors, and Excalibur. She even had a phase as a vampire, being a part of a group known as the Forgiven. But before the Fangs, she was a mutant dynamo. Jubilee's mutant powers allow her to manipulate her fireworks with great accuracy, from blinding flashes to devastating explosions, similar to an atomic bomb. She can also absorb these bursts of energy back into her own body without any harm. Undoubtedly, she's an icon. She's a legend. She is the moment. Oh, and she also has the ability to rock 90s fashion like a pro. Just like Jubilee holds her feet among the wide roster of superheroes. Similarly, among the plethora of X-Men villains, Mojo, the despotic ruler of a TV-obsessed Mojo world, is as unpleasant as they come. Belonging to the species of the spineless ones, which is self-explanatory, Mojo is a grotesque-looking obese alien without vertebra. So basically, his upper body is just a blob and has a metal exoskeleton that helps him move around. He rules the media-oriented Mojo world by producing television and movies to keep his slaves, subjects, subdued and entertained. But what's villainous about Mojo is he creates trashy television by kidnapping celebrities from their universes. As disgusting as he looks, Mojo is equally sadistic and won't bat an eye at sacrificing his so-called actors to ensure his success. The tyrannical Mojo is a master manipulator of magic and a capable mind reader. He's also a corrupter of life and a harbinger of death. He produces an anti-life field around him that makes everything around him perish and decay. Wait, let me explain. Flowers wither, humans age, and his random extended visits to Earth can cause natural disasters. Always on the lookout to increase his ratings, Mojo has been in the crosshairs with the mutants time and time again.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Jubilee meets Slave Jubilee. Although Jubilee always brought a youthful or say sarcastic energy to the X-Men crew, there have been instances when she found herself in the clutches of despicable villains. One such instance is seen in 1992's The Crunch Conundrum, in issues 52 and 53, where we see Jubilee facing her not-so-heroic future self, and the universe on the verge of its doom. While Wolverine is having a good night in the Augur Inn, he notices someone familiar. The woman invites him back to her room in Cloud 9 Motel. It turns out it was the shape-shifting villain Mystique, who had taken the form of Jean Grey to pick up Wolverine from the bar. Inside the motel room, Mystique confides in Wolverine that she's in dire need of his help to take down her ex-Freedom Force teammate, Spiral, who's lost her mind. Scared to utter Spiral's name, fearing that she would track Mystique down and attack them, she refuses to take her name. Wolverine becomes puzzled, thinking how can someone track them down just by uttering a name? Without paying much heed to Mystique's fear, he spoke Spiral's name, only to be proven wrong. Spiral swiftly arrives, and soon they learn she's not the real threat they should be fearing. Instead of attacking them like Wolverine and Mystique thought, Spiral warns them of the real threat just lurking around the corner. Before divulging the details, they're attacked by a plasma wraith, a henchman of Mojo, that's transported itself into the room. Wolverine and Mystique manage to destroy the beast, and Spiral puts up a protective barrier on the room. She then informs the duo that there's an uproar at the Crunch. The Crunch refers to the end of time when the universe will collapse into itself and cease to exist. She also informed them that the space-time chain was totally split and torn apart, and hence chaos ensued, affecting time travel. There's a traffic jam in space, and the past and future selves of every being, including hers, are coming together at the Crunch. Spiral seeks Wolverine and Mystique's help to avert this crisis in the distant future. Realizing they have no breath to waste, Spiral creates a time vortex and transports Wolverine, Mystique, and herself to the future. Logan, Mystique, and Spiral travel through the time vortex, and mind you, it wasn't a pleasant journey. They travel through a hole in time, which leads them to the future, where the crunch is about to take place. As they gathered themselves for a trip that felt like a trip from hell, they faced yet another plasma wraith. However, since this plasma wraith was from the future, and from the place it belonged, it proved to be a daunting adversary to Wolverine and Mystique. With its eyes emitting hot furnace beams, and long clawed hands, the plasma wraith could make anyone shudder or say, burn to a crisp. However, Mystique soon notices that the beast is spewing lines from various movies and television, and that's when she realizes that it's the TV-obsessed Mojo who's at play. She shapeshifts into Mojo, distracting the creature and giving Wolverine and Spiral enough window to destroy it. Then they finally grasp the whole idea of the crunch. Mojo is playing a sick and perverted game for his own twisted amusement. Realizing the gravity of the situation and the consequences it would evoke, Wolverine, Mystique, and Spiral search for the Citadel, the hub where it was all taking place. On the other hand, in the present, Jubilee raids the motel, only to find the room completely empty. Only it wasn't. There she comes face to face with Mojo, the big evil brain behind all the timeline mess. Mojo calls for his pet, Abscissa, who appears on a leash and chain, clad in a blue suit and a helmet masking her face, and all wrapped up in chains and metal. Abscissa, on her flaming rollerblades, takes Jubilee into captivity with her thick metal chains. After Jubilee is captured, she's transported away to the Crunch. Somewhere in Canada, LZD, an android, Albert, an android doppelganger of Wolverine, and the Hunter in Darkness come across a Blackfoot burial ground that wasn't on the maps and hence decide to investigate. LCD says that they have remodeled their cruise missile, which Albert answers is an antimatter implosion initiator. Hunter suddenly is very keen to dig up the ground. Upon digging the burial ground, they discover a skeleton with an adamantium claw sticking out from its hand. In the future, we see Mystique, Spiral, and Wolverine heading toward the Citadel at the end of time, just before the crunch. They're determined to prevent the universe from ending by allowing it to end. Just ride along, trust me, it's all gonna make sense later. With Mojo this time taking it too far and playing with the crunch for his own entertainment, he puts the universe at risk. Wolverine changes his costume and is dressed for the occasion. He instructs Spiral and Mystique to hop on his Harley, and instead of riding into the sunset, they ride straight to the end of the Citadel into a time vortex. They fall flat on a giant television with Mojo's giant face plastered on it. Anticlimactic, right? Mojo mocks them and shows them a captured Jubilee bound in chains before unleashing another plasma wraith on them. Here, Wolverine starts cussing Mojo, which was frankly long overdue. At present, LCD, Albert, and Hunter run a facial recognition of the skeleton they found on the burial ground. To their surprise, it bore an uncanny resemblance to Wolverine. However, the skeleton was over 200 years old. Back to the Crunch timeline, Wolverine, Mystique, and Spiral face the Plasma Wraiths. Spiral puts in the picture that Mojo is trying to prevent the Crunch from happening, but the Crunch is a necessary event for the creation of the universe. If the Crunch did not occur, the Big Bang, which created the universe, would not take place, and that would have meant the end of the world as we know it. Mojo ridicules and jeers Jubilee for having such incompetent friends. He says he very well realizes the stakes, and that maybe this is really what he truly wants, the end of the world. But he offers Jubilee an agreement and is ready to put an end to his mad play and stop tinkering with the timeline, only if she agrees to be his slave. While Wolverine, Mystique, and Spiral are engaged in fighting Mojo's plasma wraiths, they're suddenly visited by the image of Gateway, a native Australian who's named after his ability to create gateways in space and has helped the X-Men quite a few times. Gateway informs them that Albert has an antimatter implosion that can initiate the Crunch and stop Mojo from wreaking havoc. Wolverine orders Spiral and Mystique to travel back to the present and bring the missile while he continues fighting the plasma wraiths. Here, Jubilee refuses to bow down to Mojo, who, on the other hand, is confident that she will. He orders Abscissa to take off her mask, and to Jubilee's utter shock, it was her, but a little older with gray hair and a worn-out face. Mojo reveals that Abscissa is none other than Jubilee's future version, who agreed to serve him, and thus he's confident Jubilee will accept the same fate. Mystique and Spiral, who have traveled back to the present, request LCD to hand over the missile Albert created in order to save Wolverine in the future. Reluctant and unwilling to believe that the future Wolverine desperately needs help when they just discovered his skeleton, which indicates he died in the past, the trio becomes hesitant. With every moment wasted and the world's end nearing, Spiral tells LCD that the bones they found were of Wolverine but from another timeline. She offers to transport them to the past to investigate in exchange for the missile. The lady sent the missile ahead through the vortex while they stayed behind. In the Crunch, Wolverine jumps on the missile and redirects it to Mojo and Jubilee as soon as the missile arrives. Upon seeing this, Mojo asks Jubilee to stop Wolverine, as this would kill her and Wolverine as well. all. Instead, Jubilee kicks him, which causes Abscissa to vanish. Her rebellion against Mojo and refusal to surrender to him in the present prevented her future self from submitting to this blob of atrocity. Free from her shackles, Jubilee hops on Wolverine's Harley and pulls him off the missile and onto the bike. They escape from Mojo's grasp and drive through the time vortex back to the present, just as the missile hits Mojo. This leads to the crunch ultimately taking place, which means the universe is now safe, for the time being. After all that, Wolverine suddenly finds himself playing poker with Nick Fury and the others when Mr. Fantastic informs him that there's a call for him from Jubilee. Over the phone, she sheepishly tells him that she's in Tokyo and he has to bail her out. Yeah, just regular father-daughter stuff. But Abscissa's existence warns Jubilee of another fate if she ever loses control and fails to resist the likes of Mojo. But it also reminds her that it's her life and she has the power to shape her own destiny and earns a happy ending for herself. If you like our content, like it and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!